My name's Carmel, and many of you may know me, may not. My husband and I were always at Mass together. Most people know me, know my sister Joyce. I care for my older sister Joyce, who has Down syndrome. My husband and I always joke around, everyone knows Joyce, no one knows us. You may know me from the Like New Shop or Oktoberfest, running the family food tent. A lot of you may know me, may not, but what most of you probably don't know about me is I have 2 sons and a grandson, and they both I miss both of my sons. One son's in California, and that's my son John. My son Dustin is in heaven. Dustin will celebrate the anniversary of his death on April 30th. It'll be 3 years. Dustin struggled with drugs, and most people don't know that. Drug addiction is something that almost everyone has opinion on and hardly anyone's educated on, myself included. Took me a long time to get a grasp of it, a long time of prayer and anguish and disappointment. You know, my son tried and tried and tried, and addiction is, he tried telling me that he was going to be an addict all his life, and I just didn't get that. I thought he was saying he was going to use drugs all his life, but what he was saying was he was going to have that urge to use drugs all his life, and he would have to fight that urge. And as he got older, he went in and out of sobriety for rehab facilities for many years. In the beginning, it was because he had to. We forced him. We soon learned that they're expensive, and if he doesn't buy into it, we're just going through motions. Towards the end, he bought into it many, many times, and what was awesome was he spent less time off the wagon and more time on, so to speak. More time sober and less time off the wagon. And when he would fall off the wagon, it would be a shorter time period. He got himself back to detox and to rehab and got back on track. He really, really, really was trying towards the end. Anyways, as a parent, like I said, I'm talking now in retrospect. It took years to understand that. Years of loneliness, years of fighting. No one understood. Even like I can remember a very, very good friend who knew, telling her that he had relapsed. And I mean, this is a very, very dear friend. And her reaction was, "What's wrong with that kid?" I mean, this is my firstborn son. I don't know what's wrong with him. I just know I love him. That's my dear friend saying that, that it's hard, it's lonely, it's frustrating. Family members. You set up rules in your house. No drugs in my house or you're out. You have to throw your son out on the street. I would ask, I remember asking my brother if he could stay with him once, and he said, "You threw him out of your house. Why do you think I want him in my house?" He had a point, but I didn't want, my son lived on the streets at times. I've heard family members, best friends, on my side, my husband's side, talk about homeless people, talk about addicts, talk about lonely. And those people don't understand, you know, they don't. It took me all these years, and I don't know that I quite understand. How could they understand? I'm not angry with them. I get it. I'm just trying to say how lonely it can be in that desert. Frightening, lonely. So many times, you pray, you ask the Lord. Of course, his drugs led to a stupid felony that almost paved his future. My husband always said he had dug such a big hole. It was almost impossible to get out. I mean, it's impossible to get out for somebody that feels confident and good about themselves, someone that's struggling with their self-esteem and trying to fight off this addiction. It just, it just makes it harder and harder. Court system, I learned so many things. I learned about the welfare system, I learned about the court system, I learned about drugs, I learned about rehab facilities, I learned about homeless things. I know that if you can't start lining up to stay at the Salvation Army until 4:30 here in Daytona. Yay! That's a real good thing to know, isn't it? I learned it. I learned it the hard way. How many times I put Dustin in a hotel, $40 a day, without my husband knowing, had to pay cash because I didn't want Joe to find out. That I just couldn't let him sleep on the street. How many times we set him up in apartments and bought him cars and took him for jobs and all that. It's anguish. It's a struggle. And there were years before Joe and I, Joe's Dustin's stepdad. And before Joe and I married, when I was alone, there was a time where I loved Dustin, but I didn't want to be even around him. I mean, he was robbing for me blind. My bank's accounts, I never knew what I really had. Anyways, that's the loneliness, the struggles. It's so easy for us to look at that homeless guy and say, well, don't give him more than $5 because it doesn't matter what he's gonna do with that $5. Jesus told us to take care of the least of our brothers. If you got $5 in your wallet, and that's all given to him. Every addict is someone's child. Every homeless person is someone's child. And I know it's hard. And my child was one of them, and yet still I had that attitude as well. And even to this day, I struggle when I'm looking at pictures of Dustin. I look at him and say, he was high there. You know what? I don't care. He was my son. That's my son there. Doesn't matter. Dustin was high. That was part of his life. He was much nicer, so much more fun when he was sober. So much more fun. But that's part of him. Part of me. I have a niece, and like I said, let's go back. I have an older sister who has Down syndrome. Our parents died. My dad died 11 years ago. My mother died 10 years ago, and Joyce was always with them. And when my dad got sick, I moved in with my mom and dad to care for them because there was 3 of them that needed care. It was easier for me. At that point, my kids were older. I could do it. And cared for my dad. He lasted a year. He battled cancer for 1 year. We lost him in 2009. And then a year later, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and she lasted 2 months. So I became the guardian for my sister Joyce, and she's lived with me ever since. And it's funny because there's 5 kids, and Joyce is number 4 and I'm number 5. So my older brothers and sisters have a kind of a different perspective of Joyce because they had mom and dad pre-Joyce. You know, they had all my mother's attention, all my father's attention. And then when Joyce was born, everything stopped. Now keep in mind, Joyce was born in 1957, different world. Not much known about Down syndrome at all back then. And my parents did everything they could for Joyce. So my older brothers and sister kind of got pushed back. I was born, Joyce was already 7 years old. So I was born into a world I didn't know anything but Joyce. I was brought up, taught that Joyce was special, not special needs, special. That's the kind of parents I had. And man, they were right on the money about that, because Joyce is special. Okay, so that being said, I have a niece who found out she was pregnant later in life and had to have an amniocentesis due to her age, and found out her baby was going to have Down syndrome. And she reached out to me. Her and her husband are praying over it, just gut-wrenching, they don't know what to do. And she asked me for advice and support. And I told her, you know, honestly, I can't tell you what Grandma went through because I wasn't there. But I can tell you this. Joyce is the biggest blessing you could ever have. She was never a handicap to anyone. She's just full of love and joy, and you know that, and happiness. And she's challenging, but I think God gave you this baby because he knows that you can handle it. I mean, he gives people what they can handle. And any of you that are familiar with the My Parish app, I have that, and one of the little apps inside that app is CatholicMom.com. I read that every day. I love that. It's a blog. I'm a mom. I'm Catholic. It's awesome. Great perspective to get your day started. And it just so happened that morning, the blog on Catholic.com was written by a woman who had lost a child. I think it was stillborn, or I can't remember, but she lost her baby before the baby was born. And so she was grieving that. And she had said that God matches every baby with every mother. There's a reason. And it resonated with me because that told me there's a reason I was Dustin's mom. And I told Ange, there's a reason why you're going to be this baby's mom. And she had the baby, and he's just, oh, he's adorable. Adorable. And she couldn't be happier. It's her whole heart. And it should be. So anyways, I forgot where I was going with all this. Okay, so back to Dustin. Dustin, I was Dustin's mom for a reason. That's, I truly, truly believe that. I don't know sometimes what it is, I don't question it. And when I was struggling with drug addiction, and is he just being lazy? Why does he keep getting high? I don't understand this, I don't understand this. I thought about, you know, I pray the rosary so much, and I thought, you read the gospel, you hear about Jesus always curing people of demons. And, you know, you start thinking, man, there were a lot of demons back then. Well, but you know what they didn't have back then? They didn't have cancer. They didn't have autism. They didn't have, I mean, they had it, but they didn't have the medical technology to know what it was. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe that demon was an addiction. I don't know. I don't know, but Jesus cured a lot of it. And I didn't know if Jesus was going to cure it or not. you know, there's a scientific approach where it's genetic, he was born with it, maybe it's my fault, maybe it came from my side of the family. You go through all this stuff, and then there's the people, you know, most people, oh, they're just lazy people that don't want to work, just want to lay around and get high all the time. They could quit anytime they want. There's that rationale. I beat myself up thinking, and then I realized I don't have to figure it out, you know. Let someone else figure that out. All I have to do is love him. And that line of thinking, now this is a real weird tangent here, and it's dating me. Jesus Christ Superstar, right? I don't know how many people are familiar with it, but I had piano music and I had to learn how to play, I like to play it. And there's the song, and you know, the song goes with the story. And the story's set up where Mary Magdalene anoints Jesus' feet with oil, and Judas he's, you know, berating her, and he says, you know, why would you waste all that money? We could have fed the poor with that money, you know. And then Jesus comes in and he sings, surely you're not saying we have the resources to save the poor from their lot. There will be poor, always pathetically struggling. Look at the good you've got. And then it gets a lot better. But, okay, let's think about that. There's always going to be poor. There's always going to be homeless people. We don't have to solve it. Just look at the good things you've got. What did Jesus teach us? Love them. Love them. Love them. Mother Teresa, if you read her autobiography, I can't remember exactly what she was talking about. I think it was something political. It was probably, it might have been about leprosy. It might have been about the homeless situation. I don't know, but her mentality was, it's not for me to solve it. It's just me. I'm here to do what I can to love these people. Bingo. If I would have came up with that 10 years ago, boy, what a lot of grief that would have saved me. Just love him. All right. So let's get to the overdoses. There were 3 overdoses that Dustin had. One of them happened very early on, and it really wasn't much of a, you know, he was fine. The second one was the one that was probably the scariest, well, hands down, it was the scariest day of my life. Okay, those of you that know us, we're snowbirds. We spend half the year in Pennsylvania. Go Steelers. All right, I had to get that in, sorry. Sorry, Photo Bill. So anyways, Dustin was living with us, and he was on probation because of this stupid felony charge. And we were trying to get the felony probation transferred to Pennsylvania so that he could leave all of this, start out in Pennsylvania, and not know anyone, and try to make a go of his life up there. So we're waiting, and it put our trip to Pennsylvania on hold because we had to get permission from the court. So my husband, he needed to get the boat ready, so he flew up to Pennsylvania and just left me, Joyce, and Dustin here, and Dustin was working. And Dustin comes home from work one day and goes to take a shower and locks the door. And I'm sitting there in the next room with Joyce, and we're watching TV, and Dustin starts. He has his speaker on, and he's singing, and all of a sudden I hear bang, bang, bang. And I'm like, Dustin, what are you doing? And he doesn't answer me, and the bangs get louder, and the singing gets louder, and I'm yelling, and it gets crazy weird. I don't want to explain. It got weird. I couldn't get in there. I called a family member named Carl, and I explained to him what was happening, and he said, and I can hear his voice to this day, very calmly, very urgently, Carmel, hang up the phone, call 911, he's overdosing, and if they don't get there soon, he's gonna die. Couldn't get that door open, I called 911, really great operator. I couldn't, my hands were shaking. I finally found one of those little keys on top of the door to pry open that door. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't get it. I finally got in, shut the water off. Seemed like forever. It seemed like forever because drugs were involved. The ambulance can't come in without the police. This was right when fentanyl first came out. And police were realizing that they were touching it, and they were, all that protocol came out. And we live in breakaway trails. It took forever for them to get there. It seemed like they came in, and they did revive him. My dog was barking. There must have been, it seemed like there was 100 firemen and policemen in the house, and Joyce didn't know what was going on. The dog was barking. Dustin, he just looked at me. They took him to the hospital, and he just said, "You didn't have to do this." Yeah, I did, and thank heavens we did. And the worst thing of all, that's not bad enough, but I knew my husband was going to say, "Well, he's out. I was afraid he was going to go to jail because he violated his probation. In some ways, that might have been better because I knew my husband was like, he's not coming to Pennsylvania, he's not living in our house. I knew, and I knew we were going to go to Pennsylvania, and I knew if we left him in the state of mind he was in, he was going to be using. And I called Joe. He came home the next day. He was on the flight. And within 2 weeks, we had an apartment for Dustin that was walking distance to where he worked. It was $600 a week or a month. Whatever it was, he could afford it. Based on his job. He should have been okay, and it was not in a good part of town. That doesn't help. But in reality, if we would have put him in the good part of town, if someone wants drugs, they're going to find it. I learned that, no matter where you are. So we set him up. I know he's using. We go to Pennsylvania. I can't, the trauma of just the overdose. I'm a mess. I'm up there, got to put on a strong face for my husband. Anyways, up there I walked. I walked every day for 2 hours. I prayed 4 rosaries while I walked. I'm not sure how far I walked, but if you can pray 4 rosaries, it's pretty far. I walked into the next town, which is where I grew up. And there's 2 cemeteries next door to each other, and my walk went through the cemeteries, and I stopped, and I saw my father's parents, and I stopped, and I didn't know them. They died before I was old enough, really. And I introduced myself to them, and I asked them to pray for Dustin, their great-grandson. And then I stopped over and saw my in-laws. Told them, how much we missed them. Please pray for my son. And then I ended up in the second cemetery where, in a small group, small area, there's my mom's mother and father, my uncle, my mother, my dad, my sister-in-law, and her son, who we lost when he was 8 years old. And I'm praying, and I'm praying, and I'm praying, and I'm asking everybody, keep Dustin out of jail. keep Dustin from dying. Please don't let him die. Please, 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 please. I'm praying, I'm praying, I'm praying. And I'm talking to them. And I'm talking to my sister-in-law.
Just say it's fine. Like we're at 25. But you can keep going.
So I'm talking to my sister-in-law, and she's a mom. She knows. She lost her son at 8. Dustin was 31 years old at this point. Praying and praying and praying, and finally one day I was there in front of my mom and dad, and I kept saying, "Thy will be done, thy will be done," but I had an angel and a devil on each shoulder, and the angel saying, "Thy will be done," and the devil saying, "But don't let him die. Don't let him go to jail." And the angel's going, "But there were all those apostles in jail. Maybe Jesus wants Dustin to be in jail. Who knows? Maybe he's going to save someone's life there or touch someone or something." And the devil's going, "Don't let him die. Don't let him die." Finally, one day, I don't know if I just couldn't handle it anymore, whatever. I said, "Thy will be done." I let out this breath, and I said, "Thy will be done," and I meant it. I meant it. I meant it. And I said, "Whatever, Lord, you're so much smarter than me. You got this. I'll support you. I'll support you." And I'm telling you, from the top of my head, this wave just came down. I mean, tingles. It had to be the Holy Spirit. I was in a Catholic cemetery. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I felt the Holy Spirit from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes. And all of a sudden, I felt relief. I felt peace. I felt relief. And just an indescribable peace. I kid you not, within 2 days, I got a call from Dustin. "Mom, I can't stand this anymore. I can't live this life. I have to go back to detox. I have to go to rehab." Pulled some strings. I made some calls to some friends who helped me pick up his belongings and drive him to rehab. He went in and he flourished like you wouldn't believe. He left the Daytona area and went to Tampa, joined Sober Living America in Tampa. He did so well that they wanted to open up a facility in Clearwater. They put Dustin in charge. He was so proud. He was helping people. He was doing what he knew he was meant to be. And Dustin, anybody that knew him, he was either he was meant to be a politician or a car salesman. I mean, he was charismatic and he could BS like anybody's business, but he spoke from his heart like his mom does. And he helped a lot of people, and he was proud. And that, in addition to, I had this peace where when he called me, it wasn't like I was scared to answer. Is this going to be the call that he's back using, or a call from a police officer? No, it didn't matter, because God had our back, and we had a whole year, this fabulous year of growth and just great times, and we got to visit him a lot. And when we came back, I made the trip many times. It was really, really a wonderful time. And then a year later, a girl got involved. He got involved with a girl in the program, and we all know how that, they tell you not to do it. He did it, left the program for her. She left him. We of course were back in Pennsylvania again, and he called me. I said, "Get back in the program," and he just couldn't. He said, "Mom, they trusted me and I let them down." And so he turned to his old ways, and by this time fentanyl was so prominent into the drug system. He didn't understand fentanyl. And that was it. We lost him. And, you know, the next 2 weeks I was in shock. My family came in, my friends came in, and they helped me. They help you get through it. They help you get through anything you're going through. That's what family's all about. And your family isn't necessarily just the people that are biological. Your family are your friends, your best friends. Your family are the people that, like my husband's cousin, made so much food, and really good food too. I mean, the angels that come out when you most need them, they come out. And one of the most surprising things for me was I knew I've always been blessed with a fabulous family. I knew I've always been blessed with really great friends. The thing that really shocked me was we had the ceremony for Dustin here in the chapel. You know, we don't have a whole lot of people. And we came into the chapel. I don't even remember how we got here, you know. And, you know, I'm standing there and people are coming in, but I look up and there's Beth, Father Bill's secretary. There's Ron from Oktoberfest, big, tall Ron. JPEC, Gretel, people from the Like New Shop, Joanne and Terry. I couldn't believe they were here. I couldn't believe it. And it hit me. That's your family too. Your church is your family. I mean, you hear them say it all the time, but I mean, they're there, and they're there, and they're like, we never knew. They didn't care, you know. They get you through it. Your family gets you through it, the desert, and the Lord gets you through it. If you can trust in God, and it's not easy. It's so not easy. I mean, this is my firstborn son to say, hey, whatever. And when I got the call from the police department, you know, I knew. They didn't tell me. They had an officer come up and tell me in person, but I knew. And, you know, I cried, but I looked up and I said, you got me. You got me. I told you I'd go along with it, and I want to thank you for that year you gave me. Another blessing, you know, and I did lose my son, but I am blessed. I'm blessed because I know people, my nephew, he died at 8. I know my best friend, this is something, she didn't lose a baby, she lost the opportunity to have a baby. She was never able to have a baby. That's grief without a loss. You're not even given the chance. I mean, there's people that have babies, that have children that are born with cancer. They have them for 3 years, and it's 3 years of all that pain and suffering. I had 32 years of a fabulous son. We have some good memories, some bad memories. And you know, my husband always says, I pray that when you think of Dustin, you will only think of good memories and smile. And I, for the most part, do. Don't get me wrong. There are times, there's songs that the church choir will sing that just kill me. And you know, there's triggers. There's a Maroon 5 song that just kills me. There's I love it though. But I don't want to dwell on the loss. I want to remember him. People always are afraid to talk about him. I want to talk about him. I want to see his picture. Just recently we drove to St. Pete. Friends came down from Pennsylvania, and it was really important. This was a very good friend of my husband's, and he really wanted to go. And St. Pete's where Dustin passed away. And we picked up his belongings in St. Pete in probably the worst area you can imagine. And I was nervous about going, but I knew it was important to Joe, so we went and I drove. And I just kept saying, just shut up. I kept, every time that fear would rise up, I was just in denial about it, blocking it out. And I got to a road and a sign said, Gulf to Bay exit. And I could hear Dustin say, take Gulf to Bay exit, Mom. And I immediately froze, and then I was gonna cry, and then I said, hey, you just heard Dustin. I just heard him. I heard him in my ear. I miss that voice. So that was a blessing. There's blessings around everywhere. We just have to look for them. And just like any challenge that is ahead of us, how you look at it, we all know the cup is half full or half empty. You got to be positive. If you grieve, you're always going to miss them. But like I said, I have two sons. One's in California and one's in heaven, and I miss both of them. And my faith lets me know that someday I'm going to see both of them, whether it's by plane or by divine intervention. I remember telling Father Bill once after I think my mother died, how do people not have faith? How do they deal with death? I can't imagine how we deal with anything without our faith. I mean, he's right there. And it's hard. It's so, so hard. And now my sister Joyce, she's developed dementia. And I know Down syndrome. I don't know dementia. And that joyful Joyce is now fearful Joyce. And she's scared. And she's lashing out. And she's not the same girl. And she's declining. Plain and simple. And so I know what I need to do to deal with Joyce. I need to give it up to God 100%. I just can't do it. I have this secret to life, right? But it's not an easy secret. It takes a lot of faith. It takes a lot of prayer. I had a friend that said to me, you've been through so many hardships, so it's just not fair. I said, but that's because we live on earth. We're not in heaven yet. When we get to heaven, I have a lot of hardships in my life, but I also have so many blessings. So thank heavens for that. That makes those hardships bearable. And I know that when we get to heaven, it's going to be nothing but blessings. So, I'm just not ready to lose my sister when it happens. God will give me the strength. I sleep with her at night now because she wanders and she cries and says all the time, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home. And it's hard to hear. And I know, my mom wants her home. And when the Lord's ready, she's going to go home. But right now, not quite there yet. But if y'all pray for me, I'll be there someday. And I'll pray for you when you're in your desert. And everyone's in a desert, We all just need to be kind to each other because we don't know. Dustin taught me that about homeless people and stuff, He taught me, he showed me, these are people, Mom. These are people. We hear about it in church, and it's so easy to just take it. You know, we read, Jesus tells us to just love people, but we got to do it, plain and simple. We just got to do it. Doesn't matter what political party, none of that matters. Come on, people. I mean, and everybody, every age, every time has had its own strife. I mean, I don't know where I saw it. I don't know if it was a movie, a History Channel, whatnot, but I saw on something. It was a Roman town, and they had crosses every 20 feet. And if they found out you were a Christian, they just nailed you to that cross and just let you die. Can you imagine living in a world like that, where your mom sends you to go buy a loaf of bread and you come home and your father's hanging on a cross, screaming in it? I mean, come on, we have to wear a mask. I think in comparison, we're a lot better off. And a lot, Mother Teresa, people say, oh, I can't believe you. It must be so hard caring for your sister. Joyce is a challenge, don't get me wrong. But she's a little unsoot, as my grandmother would say. But what Mother Teresa did, I mean, she picked people up with maggots all over their body and loved them until they died, and just loved them. So come on now, how hard is our life, and how many blessings are we blessed with? Let's focus on that. We can get through anything.